on in the stock market. There's a few things that I think are worth noting that we should probably discuss. So let's dive right in on that. Let's see how it all looks. I want to just show a couple of charts and let's just talk about what we saw happen in the market this week. There's a few interesting things to look at. I'm going to go to a chart here real fast. So when you look at this chart, this is just a nice little SPY, nice picture of the S&P and what it's been up to lately. We certainly have seen the S&P make quite the ridiculous run. When we're talking, a pretty short period of time, the S&P made a run from the low of March 30th. So we're a good, 3 weeks into this or so, up 13% in just about 4 weeks, just a little less than 4 weeks. That's a pretty significant move. Now, the question that I think everybody is kind of wondering is, okay, S&P sits at all-time highs right now, made another, barely new high today, up just about 0.75%. So do things kind of stay here? Where are we in the grand scheme of things? I think a couple of charts that are always worth looking at and watching are number one, this one. Let's take a quick peek at the VIX. Now, remember the VIX is interesting because I always like to keep this line in place. This is about the 28 handle on the VIX. And what this talks about basically is, where is the long-term view? Where is the long-term average price on the VIX? And it's way up here. So we're once again down into the mid to upper teens. We're good 10 levels below this long-term average, but we do see the VIX and we see the stock market when the stock market's on a pretty decent trend, we see the VIX down in the mid to lower teens, right? 15, 14, 13. Some of these lower levels here are, 14, 13. And we've certainly seen it lower, back here in 23, when everything kind of calmed down. We saw it all the way down, at 11 and 12. So these are all things to just kind of keep an eye on. What we're trying to do is create a little bit of a picture. Where is the stock market headed? And where does it currently sit? We never know where the stock market's headed, but we can certainly look and see where it's sitting right now. Volatility is low. Stocks are pushing to new highs. We see the same thing in the NASDAQ, just a ridiculous run. Remember, the software stocks just got killed and we saw the Qs and the NASDAQ just get absolutely murdered. But again, we look at that low of March 30th till now, the Qs are up almost 20% again in 4 weeks. For an index to do that is significant. That's significant. That's a big deal. So there's kind of this, the market was being pushed down, even though, and obviously for the uncertainty of what's happening in Iran and with oil prices and so on. But that's telling us that the market just wasn't ready to be going down that much yet. One thing that we have to keep an eye on is oil futures. If you're not watching oil futures, you're kind of missing a big portion of the picture here. And we see oil futures, this big spike again, early March. We started to see all the pain in March. This is about March, the first week of April, into March right over here. And, obviously oil prices got everyone freaked out. We saw just about 120 on oil futures, back down in the mid to low 90s. We had this dip all the way into the high 70s. But there's still a lot of uncertainty around there. If I look at this, just like this is where I think things get pretty interesting. Just like the stock market wasn't ready to be pushed down as much as it was. And the first sign of things improving, we saw the stock market spike up. Well, oil futures are very, very similar. Oil prices, there's this idea that oil is becoming irrelevant and that peak oil usage has been reached, which we know is not the case. We're nowhere near peak oil. If peak oil keeps going at 2026, 2030, 2032 will be at peak oil. We won't need any more than we're using at that time, and it keeps going higher. So just like the stock market being super compressed, oil prices were super compressed. This takes us back to 2022 when oil prices were super high, back here in the in the 130s, and then they just went down and down and down and down, and we saw oil prices just kind of stuck in the 50s, right? In the 50s. yes, there's a lot of electric usage out there, but we're still consuming as much or more oil than we have in previous years. And so this was kind of, Iran and the Strait of Hormuz and all this is a catalyst, and it's certainly significant, and it's certainly weighing on oil prices and keeping things up. But this is also a bit of a market sentiment trend as well. Oil has been looking for a catalyst to go higher. It's been almost artificially low because investor sentiment has been what it is. But there's now reasons for oil to be kind of at higher prices. Everything else is right. We're seeing inflation and price increases going hog wild. So oil is one of the things to kind of follow suit there. So I'm just kind of watching that. I think there's a couple of stocks that I would want to keep an eye on. Just a few stocks that I think are worth noting right now that are pretty interesting. Let's look at Hood first of all. I don't love crowded trades. I think crowded trades are the worst, and I try to steer clear of those. Hood is a crowded trade, but I think it's kind of crowded for a good reason. Hood is one of these stocks that is being kind of artificially held low, and that's the theme, right? The stock market got pushed down because of the uncertainty, and the second that cleared up, it popped like we haven't seen before. And in case anybody's wondering, statistic wise, the S&P had its best 10 days since 1950. That's pretty significant, about 75, 76 years. It just had its best run there. So that's a big deal. We've seen oil have a big run, and it's kind of staying at these upper levels. And Hood is kind of one of these things where, I think it's getting artificially pushed down. Now, why is it getting artificially pushed down? One of the reasons that I would suggest is that if you look at a kind of a shorter term, like a 6-month view of Hood, this blue line right here, maybe we can change that so it's a little easier to see. Let's make that a little brighter. So this yellow line here is Bitcoin, right? And over the last 6 months, since about October or so, and it goes back a little bit further, but for a very obvious kind of comparison, the last 6 or so months, we have seen Bitcoin and Hood be very lockstep, right? Down together, flat together, down together, flat together. And so what that tells me is probably a decent part of it is the fact that Robinhood makes a good bit of money, and we can see this in their earnings. Robinhood makes a good bit of money in crypto trading commissions, right? In crypto trading volume. Robinhood's taken a hit of a few $100 million with Bitcoin going down and cryptos going down. That's hurting Robinhood in the couple $100 millions, right? That's a lot. That's like a significant part of Robinhood's revenues. And so with cryptos going down, that's dragging Robinhood in particular down with it. I think we need to see a meaningful rally in Bitcoin specifically and cryptos for Robinhood to start to go up again, right? And so I think that's kind of what I would be looking for and waiting for. Robinhood has been tapped as one of the preferred sources for the Trump accounts. Remember the Trump accounts, right? Where the government's going to put in like $1,000 when a baby's born, and they have to, let it be invested for X amount of years. And Robinhood is one of those approved brokers to do that. That could be a significant source of revenue. Number one. Number two, day trading restrictions have gone away, right? That's been at least voted out for the moment. So we'll see how that all ends up shaking out. But that was certainly a big move for Robinhood here, where that's a big revenue boost if smaller accounts can now day trade. I mean that could have the potential of increasing revenues significantly at Robinhood. So I think that's worth noting. So what we see here is, a very typical, lot of excitement, a lot of rallying, a lot of things happening, a lot of lower highs. Has Robinhood kind of found some sort of short-term bottom? I don't know, but if you look at it just kind of in a this kind of a light, I would say, if we just try to look at kind of what the channel's been doing, big significant run up, and then some consolidation lower. I mean, this looks bullish. There's the fundamentals are there. And now we're getting some decent technical patterns that are looking kind of interesting. So I'm going to watch this, and I'm going to be looking for ways to trade this. Earnings are in 4 days, so that's going to be significant. So watch as earnings come. I think it's Tuesday of next week, and just see if there's some overly good news coming out of Hood for that. So I think that could be super interesting. So we'll see how that goes. So that's one I'm watching. Another one that I'm watching is this guy right here, RKLB. This is Rocket Labs. I think that this is a pretty interesting one to keep an eye on. It's not super far from all-time highs. Earnings again coming up in about 13 days, but it's coming off all-time highs. This thing has been moving around quite a bit. It's spent a lot of time really kind of consolidated here, about 2 months, making a big run up, pulling back. We'll see, where that solidifies. But I like this stock. I think as SpaceX approaches going public, which I think is about June of this year, this could be an interesting kind of semi-proxy of how can we profit from the from the space side of things and from these types of movements. So Rocket Lab's a great one to trade if you have the right strategy and if it's something that's on your radar. But it's on my radar. I like it, and I think there's more potential upside coming for Rocket Lab. So this could and should be pretty interesting. So let's see how this shakes out. Just a couple of stocks I think are worth noting. A couple of stocks to keep an eye on. I've got a lot of other stocks that I think are worth watching, but Hood and Rocket Lab are kind of higher on my list right now, and I think there's some decent opportunity with those guys. So let's keep an eye on it. I just wanted to talk about a few stocks. This is my first live stream. I'm going to start doing these. I'll let everybody know what the schedule is, but I figured I would just turn it on and let it rip and see what happened. So here it is. Here's the unfiltered version. But thanks for logging in, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining in. And I will get some details posted on when these will be and when you can count on jumping on and we can discuss. And I look forward to people's comments and questions and thoughts and so on. But thanks for joining in, guys. Keep an eye on these stocks. We've got earnings coming up on both of them. They should be pretty interesting. Nice to meet you all. Jared Johnson here. Take care, and we'll see you all soon.